And we're potentially live. I think we're live, so we're live.
We are.
Hello, everybody. This is WordCast number 20. We're actually beyond the tens now, which is pretty great. So, yeah, I know. It's like a big whoopie-doo. All right. So, anyway, thank you, everybody, for joining. Yes, this is WordCast number 20. Yes, our date has changed. We will get to that in just a moment. That is the first order of business. And lots of news. So much that I didn't even really know what to put as the beginning headlines for this. So, that is why it says news. There's a lot of stuff to talk about this time, especially because we missed last week. So the first thing I want to do is I want to address missing last week. That's his fault, so you can yell at him about it. That's all Daniel's fault. Oh, and I forgot to say, you guys should go subscribe to his channel. It's in the description. You guys definitely should do that. But
so you shit on me before you say that. I see how it is.
Yes, exactly. No, anyway, yeah, actually, I meant to say things about the description first. Go subscribe to Daniel's channel. We got our Minecraft and Teamspeak server IPs down there so that you are welcome to play Minecraft with us, primarily me because he's a loser. And then we're also going to Teamspeak you can use with all your buddies. And make sure to follow us on social media.
Or you can again, Discord, but he's a loser.
So anyway, first order of business. Yeah, we missed last week. You weren't feeling well, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, that happens. Eventually, we're going to have more than just a two-person podcast here. We'll have 3, sometimes 4, but most of the time 3. So that way, if one person is missing, we can still continue on. So that will be changing fairly soon, just letting everybody know. Also, we are now on Wednesdays. Also his fault, but that's okay because it works out fine for me.
It's not my fault. It's my boss's fault. My schedule changed at work.
This is true. This is true. But it's a good change for the most part, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, now we can hang out on weekends, maybe do some more collab videos. And by more, I mean do at least one.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why. So from now on, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Pacific time is when we're going to be doing WordCast until further notice. I'll probably make a video this week about that, just explaining why that's the case in more detail. But, and for the people that, maybe aren't watching right now.
Yeah. So first topic, and this actually touches on something that we had talked about last time, net neutrality, and the battle over it has definitely intensified. So this all kind of really got brought into the spotlight Sunday when John Oliver had his episode, and like he did a couple years ago, he talked about net neutrality again. And I first off, I know he's never going to see this, but I want to thank you, John Oliver, for bringing this up. You are probably the only reason that net neutrality has been in as much of the mainstream news as it has.
Yeah.
I
would agree with that.
Most of the coverage I've seen on net neutrality this week has been coverage about stuff that's happened directly because of him, or at least after his episode.
Yeah. It's definitely good that he's doing it. I mean, personally, I'm not the biggest John Oliver fan, but it makes me really happy that he's talking about this in particular. It's funny, actually, if you search on Google, John O.L., just John O. The first suggestion is John Oliver net neutrality. So that gives you an example of just how much he's been talking about it.
So he set up a URL called gofccyourself.com. What this does is, so the current process to find the specific comment page for Title II net neutrality is absolutely absurd. So what he did was he got the direct URL and then made an easy to remember URL to use it. I see what you're doing.
I highlighted it because I was going to open up. He put the link in the doc, but he didn't actually link it. And so I was going to highlight it and right click to go to it. And Google's suggestion was, did you mean gofccyourself.com? And I clicked that by accident and corrected it. That was pretty great.
Yeah. This redirects you directly to the comment page, so you can comment whether you're in support of net neutrality or for some reason you want Comcast and Verizon to be able to screw consumers.
Yes, indeed. And fun thing, as FCC's site been going kind of up and down since this Go FCC Yourself started.
Now there's a lot of things that could be. The FCC is claiming that they've been DDoSed. And there's been requests, or not, I don't know if it's formal requests or if there's even a process to formally request it, but there's been a lot of people talking about how the FCC should release the logs that would prove that they were DDoSed.
I highly doubt they were DDoSed. I'll tell you why in a second.
Yeah. Well, if they were DDoSed, then the question becomes who and why? Because
what would be the point of that? Yeah.
Because for anyone that's actually in support of net neutrality, that would be bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
Comment. But for anyone against net neutrality, ISPs, that would be beneficial because then we couldn't comment. And now, while that may sound like some crazy conspiracy, the other big thing that's going on with the comment section for this specific issue is that there is literally, it looks like there's literally just bots going
Just
in and
spamming it,
posting anti-net neutrality comments. They are the exact same comment on most of them, and they are literally going just in name order using people's name and addresses without their consent.
Yeah, which is a big deal. If they figure out who does that, they need to be sued.
Yeah, there
Probably
is
the
an
ISP
image.
is doing it.
That's the only reason that I actually think that the DDoS, if it did happen, could be the ISPs. Before that, I was like, sure, theoretically, yes, but that would be dumb. But then we see this. Who knows what that? I mean, it also very well could just be someone in support of net neutrality doing this to build up publicity and make it.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of different things this could be.
And
it's very sketchy. It's very odd.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anything like this has ever happened. Ever.
It'd be so easy for an ISP to DDoS, so that's why it wouldn't be that unlikely that it's them. That's a very easy thing for them to do.
But yeah, I saw an image on Reddit of a picture of the comment page, and it was literally the same first name, just with different last names in alphabetical order, exact same comment.
Yeah.
So there's definitely bots doing this.
A lot of
Oh, I was gonna say, if you are in support of net neutrality and you have not already commented, go fccyourself.com. Actually comment. This is very important. We've fought back on stuff like this before with people that were against it. We can do it again, but we need people to comment, especially to drain out the bots.
We need a stronger win this time. I think that's part of the problem is we didn't continue to push after it kind of went through last time.
If we fight back on this, I think net neutrality is safe.
I think so. Yeah. And
we really always come up again, but the likelihood that it would, because if we beat it back against a very anti-net neutrality Republican, it'll be fine. He's one of the most anti-net neutrality. He is just not a good person for this job in the first place.
Yeah. I can agree with that. And that's the thing is I get really frustrated with there's a lot of people that I personally know, I'm not going to say who, that are for or against net neutrality, and their argument is that, well, it's not free market and stuff. And I look them in the eye and I'm like, monopolies aren't free market either.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's not the argument here. And the problem is when you look at how net neutrality hasn't been implemented for so long and nothing good has come of it, why are we immediately assuming that something bad's going to come of it? The thing is, a lot of the people that are worried about something bad coming of net neutrality being enforced will reverse it if something bad happens. The idea is we need something different because clearly nothing else is working.
Literally, what bad could happen?
Exactly. That's the thing is it doesn't even make sense. I'm just saying if something bad did happen from it, we'd fight against that too to fix it or reverse it or whatever it may be. But we need to at least try something.
Yeah.
Is the point I make to people that don't understand it. I'm like, we need to at least try something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of arguments. So the claim by internet service providers is that regulating them as a utility gives the federal government a lot more or too much control over ISPs because it does allow them to set things like price limits. There's a lot of control that the government would have over ISPs should they choose to use it.
Right.
A lot of ISPs say no one's ever threatened net neutrality before, so why are we implementing all of these strong regulations? Keep in mind that their argument against it is the same argument that you could have for it. It hasn't been done, so why are you worried about it? Is what the ISPs are saying. Right. But the FCC hasn't implemented the other regulations, so why are they worried about it?
Right.
And on top of that, it has been done by ISPs. For one, Time Warner Cable is currently being, or I think it's been happening for a couple months, but they're being sued for slowing down Netflix and League of Legends. They were being throttled. So this has happened. It is happening.
And that's the problem is they've been kind of testing around with these fast lanes and stuff already. That's one of the issues I have with it is they're kind of playing around with with this. Like they've already proven that they're thinking about doing these things, and it's really messed up because the thing is, it hurts small business more than anything.
Yeah,
which is something that I know some small business owners that are against net neutrality, and I'm like, do you not understand what this is? You know, like right now, right? So we have a business class internet here. I actually finally found out what we're paying for it. We are paying $100 a month for 35 down. We are sorry, 25 down. I'm sorry. We are literally paying $4 per megabit.
Meanwhile, and I don't live very far from you, but on regular non-business class internet, which my internet is more reliable than yours.
Yeah,
like,
whatever
we
about this
both know
area.
that's true.
Yeah.
I'm paying $70 a month, counting the modem rental for 200 down.
Yes, right. Our 100, I think, is counting the modem rental too. But anyway, point is, well, the thing is, we can't even get 200 here, as far as I know. But the thing is, 20. That's part of why they upcharge areas that they can't get the better speeds to, so to speak. But also, we have no data cap, which is part of why we're planning on keeping business class. We're just going to be upgrading to like 75 down, which would be a lot better. And our upload's really good too. Our upload when we have 75 will probably be almost like 50 up, which is going to be great for what I do.
Yeah. One other thing though that I want to clarify. Oh, my up's only like 10.
Yeah, see, I already have 15, so it's like, anyway, continue though.
One other thing I wanted to clarify too, as far as the Time Warner being sued, it's not like they're being sued by some random guy who felt like they were throttling, or even by Netflix or Riot themselves. They're being sued by, I think it's the New York Attorney General, but they're being sued by like a high up official in a city because they were doing this to people in that city. And there's proof from Netflix, Riot, and multiple other outside organizations showing
fucking ridiculous. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time something like this has happened. We know from before. I think it was Verizon and I think it was Comcast that were doing the whole fast lanes thing to Netflix, and Netflix ended up giving in somewhat and setting up a special deal with them.
Right. Well, they're finally big enough to do it, and they have to help their subscribers. But it's like, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like you're paying for the service. You shouldn't have to pay. You pay for Netflix as a service, and you pay for internet as a service. You shouldn't have to pay for Netflix through the internet as a service as well.
Yeah. The way I see it, and I will give mobile data a bit of a pass on this, because I see it as two different things. So with mobile, you pay for a certain amount of data. So doing things like having video run at a lower bit rate to save you data, but that being optional, or having things like certain services not counting towards your data cap.
Those are mobile does.
Those are but those are different than this bigger issue. When it comes to home internet, let me finish this real quick.
Sorry.
When it comes to home internet, you are paying for a certain amount of speed. So sure, that doesn't mean always, but why would my ISP be limiting products from hitting that speed with me not having the option to get around it? It's not like if they start throttling Netflix, I have a toggle or I can even pay them to do it. No, they're then forcing Netflix to pay them. They're extorting Netflix.
Right. Well, and eventually they're going to
extort
for
me to be able to get the speeds that I am paying for.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and, you can't have. I was gonna say you can't have policies that essentially impact what you're offering. That's literally false advertising.
Right, exactly.
That'd be like if I sold you a car that could go 500 miles an hour, but it could only do that in space.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I'm sorry I'm so interruptive tonight. I don't know why I'm doing that, but yeah, no, totally. And the thing is. Brain fart. That's just wonderful. It was about mobile internet's a little bit different when it comes to mobile too, because the thing is you're gonna get fluctuations in speed, but the thing is mobile has competition. There is currently innovation in the mobile segment. That's the problem. Is you look at Comcast and stuff, they ain't doing shit. The last innovation Comcast did was 2 gigabit in New York City so that they can say we have the fastest internet in America. They still say that here in Oregon, where the fastest speeds we can get are like 200, 250 down. And realistically, in most places, it's like 100-ish is the limit. Realistically, it's like they still have commercials over here that say, well, we have the fastest internet in America. Yeah, not here. But they still can say that legally.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of BS they're doing. Whereas there's competition in the mobile segment, so it's understandable. And I don't feel like what T-Mobile does, they do give you the option to change that and to either have it count towards data, or now that they have unlimited data only, you have to pay for it. But the thing is, you are paying for better quality video, not for Netflix. And what Comcast is trying to do here, they're already fucking over people by not innovating, overcharging them for literally everything by a ridiculous amount, slowing things down on certain services. But now they're also looking to get money from companies, in particular big companies, and probably in small amounts, small businesses too, to speed up their internet. And they're going to eventually probably going to start doing package type stuff for people where consumers are going to have to pay if they want to use those services. So then Comcast goes, they're double dipping. They're saying, hey, let's charge Netflix so that their stuff runs fast, then charge people to use Netflix. And it's BS. That really is a bad thing.
They're effectively, and they've tried to do it before, and they will try and do it again if we lose net neutrality, committing extortion. And on top of that, they've already committed theft because multiple ISPs have taken plenty of tax dollars to do things like fiber rollouts that they have never done, and then claim, and then with the money that we gave them to, in some cases, fully fund the fiber rollout, they've said that somehow us marking them as a utility and not even actually implementing most of those regulations on them is hampering their ability to innovate and roll out product.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
That with no financial loss whatsoever, under any circumstance, because we paid for it, you still can't roll it out?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's the thing too, is that the data doesn't even point in that direction. I don't actually have it pulled up, but Paul's Hardware actually talked about it in one of his, I think it was one of his live streams. But anyway, Paul's Hardware talked about it, saying that the data actually shows that since we've been working on enforcing net neutrality more, the innovation in the wired internet in specific has increased by a pretty dramatic amount in comparison to the last decade.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we literally have data that shows the exact opposite of what the ISPs are claiming it'll do, because it's forcing them to do things better. It's forcing them to charge us less money and or to innovate and to not mess everything, because it really is realistically a service, and we need to treat it exactly like a service. It's a right at this point, in a sense, and that's how Google treated it with fiber, is as a right. You could get free internet. You pay for the equipment and the setup fee, and you have free internet.
Yeah, at this point, realistically, I think, and I know that this is such a long ways out for, especially for, rural areas, but just for most areas in general, we need city-run internet service providers.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is
that have strict. What we need. We need city-run service providers with federal laws protecting people from them being able to do sketchy things. Because yes, there are some shitty cities, but we
need competition in reality. That's the end all.
Like near us in Sandy, you can get gigabit internet for super cheap because Sandy set up their own internet service provider.
Yeah, right, exactly. The thing is, I don't think it necessarily needs to be actually owned and run by the city.
There's no realistic way with wired internet to have competition. It is automatically extremely expensive.
Yeah, I know, and that's part of the problem. That's why Google backed out. Google backed out because it was too expensive. But the thing I'm getting at is, I guess, one of the big points too is net neutrality. We wouldn't need it if there were 4,000 ISPs across America that were located in different areas doing different things. The only concern I have about doing like a government or city run internet is I like the city-run infrastructure, but then I feel like companies should pay the city to use that rather than the city providing the internet. Is that what you're getting at? Or are you getting at
I'm getting like Sandy has. I mean, Comcast still operates there. Other companies still operate there.
But you buy it from Sandy, right?
Yeah, they've set up their own ISP that sells it not for profit. They sell it at cost, I believe.
Right.
Like,
the only issue I have with that is that does stifle innovation.
I mean,
if it was all city run, there still needs to be some form of competition to push it. Right. Okay.
But even then, there would only be no innovation if people just were like, "Cool, we're happy with what we're at." Because if you demand more from especially cities. It's one thing when you get into if it was like a state run or country run. But since it's cities, it's localized. Like, if I have a problem with it, I could literally just go to the town hall and complain.
Well, not only that, I actually just thought of something too. Is it could create some form of competition of whichever city has the best internet might be another reason for more people to live there.
Business. We've seen with Google Fiber when they opened up in Colorado, businesses went there. Everywhere they've opened up, business boomed especially in the tech industry.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
It's the future of this country. So quality internet for a cheap cost, it'll help everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. What's this about? Fuck Oracle. It looks like Oracle's.
Oracle
I never really
is
liked them
anti-net
anyway.
neutrality.
That doesn't surprise me. They're probably in cahoots with a lot of the ISPs.
I was going to say, realistically, they probably plan on selling the software that will handle managing throttling people or something stupid like that.
That too. Or Oracle does some sketch stuff sometimes, man. I don't like Oracle. I
was reading a perfect comment from someone who's dealt with them before and who avoids them like the plague as to why the only reason they're still profitable. It's because they have so many ties to other top 500 companies that they can say, look, we're the respected one. We can have your business, blah, 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 blah. They essentially they fight back against IT departments at some businesses to get themselves in by claiming that they're the one that all the Fortune 500 companies use, which is how they keep being used by Fortune 500.
To be realistic, this is the same kind of stuff that Cisco does as well. Biggest networking company on the planet. They kind of force their way into medium to large size businesses. The
difference is that they're not complete pieces of shit.
No, yeah. Cisco's good, especially when it comes to education. Cisco treats people amazing. Oracle's education system has never been that great, in my opinion. But Cisco does a good job. But I'm just making a point: is companies that have a kind of a monopoly do that. Cisco has a monopoly realistically on business, networking utilities, and then they overcharge for a lot of their technology, albeit it's great, but they overcharge for it.
And if you guys want another reason to hate Oracle, though, they tried to sue Google for using open source Java libraries. Open source. You can't sue someone for using something that's open source if the open source is done by you.
Yeah,
it's hey guys, you can use this art in whatever, but I'll sue you for it. It's not how it works.
It's not. Oh man, let's move on though, because we do only have just over an hour left, and we've got a lot to cover.
This one we can go through pretty quick.
Okay.
Google has, so for those that don't know, Google's been working on another OS, separate from Chrome OS, separate from Android. This is a full brand new OS called Fuchsia.
For mobile, keep that in mind.
We don't know that for sure. This is what's been shown off. This is what's been shown off.
They've shown off screenshots of it that make it pretty clear it's for mobile.
But we've seen them. We've seen what Google wants to do before with the idea of Chrome OS and Android somewhat merging.
So it could be.
We could have just seen the mobile UI, and there's a lot of features in this new image in these new images of mobile UI that are desktop-like features, like how the multitasking, how you can actually drag windows on top of each other.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that wouldn't just be mobile. But essentially, so Google's been working on an OS. Its new UI is called Armadillo for whatever reason.
We start with an A.
Yeah. But I don't know why their their UI would change like that. They would usually just have the OS change. But, But it looks completely different from Android.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty nice. And it's not Linux based whatsoever. Google made a custom microkernel for this. I think it's called Magenta. And so they're doing all of the work from the ground up on this. So this
I believe it's called Magenta. I think you're right.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
This is pretty interesting, and people have asked because it happens before. So Google allows their employees to spend 20% of their time on whatever other projects they want to do. If they want to try and come up with something cool, they've confirmed. They've confirmed that Fuchsia is not a 20% project. It is a legitimate project within Google.
Okay,
so we know that Google has some sort of plan, whether it's for something very specific, whether it's to replace Android in the future, which would be very odd and interesting, or whether it's essentially, it could be what they see as the future of computing. And that we've seen these ideas before of hybrid devices that can be, tablets and laptops. We've seen ideas from Samsung of foldable devices that could be a phone and a tablet. So if you have a phone, tablet, and laptop all at once, then a consistent UI that would work well across all of them could be something Google's working on.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to do something like that. Yeah, and I mean, I would actually like to see them come out with a real desktop OS that can, in a way, compete with Windows, because Windows pisses everybody. Microsoft's been pissing everybody off lately, but we're not even going to get into that because I'll talk about that for 4 hours. But the one thing that's weird is I'm glad it's not Linux-based, because there's a lot of Linux-based stuff, and I do like Linux a lot, but it's nice to have something new that's a little bit more modern, so to speak. Not that Linux isn't, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. But the one concern there is Linux does already have a decent backing, and I would personally like to see another OS for desktops that it pushes really hard to get developers to build stuff for Linux. Yeah, because I would use Linux if it weren't for the shit support on most applications and most games that I play. Yeah, I don't like Windows as much as Linux.
That all being said, Google could make this and probably get dev support infinitely faster than Linux.
They could, yeah. I'm just saying that Linux already has a little bit of that.
Even its most user-friendly version of Linux is not user-friendly, realistically.
Yeah.
Whereas this UI already it already looks more friendly than most.
It looks like a beefy Chrome OS in a way, a little bit.
Kind of, and this. I mean, we know Google has the ability to get support from app developers.
They've been good about that. Google's always been good about pushing for that.
I think that if their end goal is an actual OS, I think they could get the support they need. And I'm sure that they would just, if they need to get app support, implement some kind of Android compatibility layer.
Yeah, indeed. And that wouldn't be that hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a little bit harder since it's not
Linux, but it's doable.
But they could do it.
I mean, yeah. Well, realistically, you can run Android apps on Windows.
Yeah. And the other thing that we know, this isn't from this new news, but this is from way back when Fuchsia and Magenta had initially been announced. Magenta as a kernel is very, very light. It was actually part of the original design. Like, one of the main things with it was ensuring that it would work on things like Internet of Things devices.
Yeah, which would make it really unique.
If you have an OS that can scale from IoT all the way up to desktop, that would be insane.
That's a big deal. And one thing actually that some people are predicting is that it's potential wow, I'm having a lot of just like tonight, and I don't know why. It was about I can't believe I'm doing this now. It was about I can't remember. Oh yeah, some people are I don't know why I'm doing this. Some people are predicting that it might be in specific for more like high-end smartphones and tablets and stuff like that, and Android will still be on the mid-range to lower-end stuff. I don't know. It's just a prediction. I don't really see that either. I'm just mentioning that some people are thinking that's potentially it.
Let's look at it this way. I mean, it could, unless they're doing I don't know. The way I see it, though, if they were doing that, having a separate OS that would have to run a compatibility layer that goes across kernels is not going to give the best experience in every app. And
no, it's not. You're right.
For a OS that's being solely developed for high-end, if that was the case, which at this point, we kind of know it's not, because they made the kernel specifically work with IoT.
Yeah, which
and
makes
other
sense.
Extremely lightweight hardware. But if they were doing that, then they'd essentially have to be able to convince developers to optimize for what would initially especially be a very hyper niche OS.
Right.
So I just think that there would be too many problems with that.
A good point. Maybe we'll see Fuchsia running bridges someday.
Yeah, and there is a tablet UI already confirmed.
Yes, I knew that. Okay, very cool. Yep. So the next thing is big news.
Volta.
Yes, Volta, NVIDIA Volta architecture is a thing now.
Yeah,
big deal.
At GTC 2017, which is the GPU technology conference, they showed off the first Volta chip. And now this is not a consumer chip. It's the Tesla.
That's okay.
Yeah, which this is actually pretty normal for NVIDIA. Unlike AMD, who releases the what was it, the 560 or 570 that was, no, 560 that was new hardware and everything else was old. NVIDIA goes for the top tier, like the high profit, low yield cards to then fund the rest of the
lineup, which is a really smart way to do it if you think about it, because then they're making more profit per card. They don't have to manufacture as many. It gives them time to refine any issues that they find, you know, because then that way they're not selling so many of them that it's hard to fix whatever's going on. And it gives them time to refine the manufacturing process to get better yields for a better price for themselves so they can make more money off of it.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, so I'm going to compare this to the 1080 Ti just for reference of another card. But for anyone watching, keep in mind, different architectures, so many other differences. This is not a consumer card. This is a, you know, very high-end supercomputer AI type card.
It's $7,000, right?
I haven't seen a price.
No, that's right. They haven't released a price. Sorry, it's the last Tesla top end is like $5,000 to $7,000.
Yeah, the P100. But so for reference, it has 5,120 GPU cores compared to the 1080 Ti's 3,584.
Well, how many does the Titan XP 1.5 have? Let me find out.
It's got the same amount as the 1080 Ti.
No, I'm talking about the new Titan XP.
This shows Titan X Pascal.
Yes, but there's
102. I don't know. I'm just going off of the PC per chart.
How many did you say the 1080 Ti had?
3,584.
Yeah, it's 3,840 for the Titan XP.
Okay.
The actual Titan XP, because remember they were able to unlock it further.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure which one was listed on this.
Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
And then they don't list a base clock for the Tesla V100, but the boost clock is 1455 megahertz.
So high
compared to the 1080 Ti, which is a gaming card, so it's naturally going to be focused on speed over most anything else. 1582.
Which, I mean, that's really high for a workstation, pro card. That's insane.
Yeah. For texture units, the Tesla V100 has 320 compared to the 1080 Ti's 224. It's got 16 gigs of HBM2 RAM versus the 1080 Ti's 11 gigs of 352-bit.
GDDR5X, right?
GDDR5X, yeah. So for reference, HBM2 is 4096-bit. A little bit of a difference there.
Just a wee bit. Yeah. That's insane.
And then the memory clock is a lot lower. According to this, it's only 878 megahertz.
That's okay, though.
That's because of the higher bit. Ultimately, the memory bandwidth is 900 gigabytes per second, compared to the 1080 Ti's 484. So it's nearly double the memory bandwidth.
That's pretty insane. I mean,
and
I love it.
It does this on 300 watts as the TDP compared to the 1080 Ti's 250. And
which tells me that they have not made that many power efficiency increases.
Well, that or they did, but the other things outweigh it, like the increased clock speed.
I mean, it's a lot of cores and stuff, so I get that, I guess. But it doesn't seem like a substantial improvement, is what I'm saying.
But something else interesting to compare this to really quick. So, and its peak compute is 15 teraflops. But to compare this with the R9 Fury X, which is kind of like the most recent high-end AMD card, sort of.
The top. The most recent, like you said, the most recent really high-end card. It competed pretty well with the 980.
It runs on 275 watts and only had 4 gigs of RAM, 4,000 cores, and
different kind of core skew than mine. But
400 gigabytes per second less memory bandwidth.
Lower clock speed by almost
way lower
half a gigahertz. Yeah.
So, this is all going to be. Oh, and there's 21.1 billion transistors in the Tesla V100.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, and actually, it looks like PC Per has the price listed here. LOL.
Yeah.
That's the price that PC Per has listed on the article.
Lol.
Literally says LOL. That's pretty great. I mean, I'm gonna guess straight off the bat, $8,000. That's gonna be my guess. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah.
I bet money on $8,000.
Yeah. And then on top of that, there was, and I'm trying to find the link for it, there was a new version of CUDA announced that was mainly being optimized for Volta, but they announced CUDA 9, which has a lot of benefits. Again, pretty much it's just extra stuff for Volta. I mean, there is other smaller benefits, but mainly Volta is the priority.
Right. Okay.
AI performance, things like that. Just essentially some other stuff for developers to work with.
It's cool. It's cool. I'm excited to see what Volta is like when it comes out. I actually have something else I wanted to talk about here that's related to Volta, so I figured I'd go ahead and do that. It's actually related to NVIDIA, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about these two that they're down at the bottom. So first off, the NVIDIA CEO, Jensen Huang, is that how you say it? I'm assuming. I think. I always have trouble saying his name. Isn't worried about Vega at all. This is a quote from him. My assessment is that the competitive position is not going to change. When asked specifically about whether he was worried about their competitive position versus AMD. So that's kind of funny. Doesn't surprise me that he's not worried about it, but I do hope Vega gives them a run for their money, especially in the mid-range. And that's the thing, too, is a lot of people don't think about the fact that, yeah, the 1080 Ti and like the 1080, those are great cards, and they're actually pretty good for the money. And, you know, people complain that, well, AMD hasn't competed in that area. And I agree they should to support enthusiasts, because enthusiasts in the tech industry have the loudest voices. So supporting enthusiasts is very important. Intel's learning that the very hard way over the last couple of years. But anyway, what it is so people don't seem to understand that the difference between how many like 1080 Ti's are sold versus how many like 1070s and 1060s is like an order of magnitude because of what people can realistically afford for their PCs. High-end gamers will go with like a 1070. That's what I have. High-end, even enthusiasts that don't have tons of money. And then you've got like the regular gamer or the esports gamer that's going with like a 1060 or 1050. So if Vega isn't amazing in the super high-end, but if their top-end card is say $350 and like blows the 1070 out of the water, it's a really big deal. So that's something also people need to think about, is people have been complaining, and I understand this, about them not being powerful enough. I think AMD understands that the market they need to hit really hard is the mid-range, and that's why they've been focused on it for the last couple of years. It's just that they're letting the enthusiasts down, which is giving them a bad image, despite the fact that like the RX 480 or 580 is a very good card for the price.
Yeah. The other thing, though, is, and I think part of why the CEO of NVIDIA would be this confident and this willing to say this, with how close Vega is to being released, there's no way NVIDIA doesn't already have their hands on a Vega GPU. Just like how when Volta consumer chips are nearly ready, AMD will get their hands on it. That's just what happens in the tech industry. And if Vega is coming out this soon and NVIDIA does happen to have their hands on it, then they'll know how Volta is going to compare. And so what if, because like NVIDIA has been doing a really good job recently of increasing performance every generation. Like I have a 970, and the 1060 pretty decently would be an upgrade, especially for VR, which VR is gaining ground in the market. And
the enthusiasts have been appreciating NVIDIA about that versus and stuff.
And so if Volta follows this trend, along with having, I presume what's going to happen is GDDR5X in the lower end and HBM in like the 70 and above this time, if they can do it. But like if they can do something like that and have all of these different upgrades, they could come out with like a 10 or like an 1160 or whatever they decide to call it, that is able to not just definitely outperform AMD stuff, but compete in the price to performance portion.
Right. Yeah. And I guess I can agree with you on that. Yeah. And
because the other thing is like the 50 Ti series from NVIDIA is surprisingly good for the money. And so if they can bring over some Volta upgrades and into that and continue again this performance increase, I mean, realistically, the 1050 Ti is already a pretty solid 1080p.
Right. And that's the thing is Vega needs to realistically if they want to compete in the future with what Volta is going to be capable of, Vega needs to be like 1080 Ti class performance for $400.
Yeah.
Because then when the 1070 or 1170 or 2070 or whatever the hell they call it comes around, it's going to be, you know, actual competition at that point. So I don't know. AMD's got to play their cards just right, and they did it with Ryzen. They played their cards just right. So we'll see if they can do it with Vega, but the rumors haven't been anywhere near as hopeful as Ryzen.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I highlighted the next thing we can talk about just so you know. Yeah. So other NVIDIA news, and then we'll be moving on from NVIDIA, is GeForce Experience has added Vulkan and OpenGL support to Shadowplay, which they're probably going to end up changing the name to just Share, at least is what I read. This is from a PC Per article, so who knows if they were making that up or not. Sometimes they're a little overly sarcastic, but I love those guys. Anyway, so that's pretty cool, though, that you can use Shadowplay with Vulkan and OpenGL now, which when a hardware manufacturer is, you know, focused on open source stuff like that, it hopefully means that it is, or at least is going to help it gain more traction. So did we talk, Mitch is asking, did we talk about GDDR6 news yet?
I think we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we haven't talked about anything this show yet. In fact, we don't really have much on here right now because I'm starting to be confident that HBMs might be the one to pull ahead of it, but we'll see. Especially though that Volta has been able to get 16 gigs, that kind of eliminates that major issue with HBM, which we knew was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
There's an announcement today. Oh, why did I not see this? I follow so many feeds. Why did I? Let me look. 10 hours ago, Tom's Hardware. SK Hynix showed off GDDR6. Thank you, Mitch, for talking about that.
Yeah,
here, let's see.
Introduces industry's fastest 8 gigabyte graphics DRAM.
Interesting. Okay. So GDDR6, yeah. So we're looking at density of 8.
Do we know if they're saying it's when they say world's fastest? If they're saying because there hasn't really been 8 gig HBM cards released, or if it's because it's faster. Because I mean, like, let's see.
It is lower voltage.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's definitely not faster than HBM2, at least the 16 gig. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Mitch is saying that Volta consumer cards will run GDDR6. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, but I think long-term HBM is the future. That's why, you know, I've always talked about AMD before too, is I feel like sometimes they invest and hype things up a little too early. So, and yeah, I think you're right, Mitch. Actually, HBM is a lot harder to manufacture than they ever thought. I think you're right, and I think they're improving that. Again, I think it's the long-term future, but for now, I feel like, you know, GDDR6, it'll probably gain some traction. Eventually, I think it'll be phased out because HBM will take over because of its long-term capabilities. But it's definitely more expensive to manufacture. It's definitely, I believe, takes more time to manufacture, especially when we saw all the shortages of the AMD cards running HBM. So that doesn't surprise me. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes, but it's just so much faster.
Yeah. One other thing, though, that I want to mention with all of that and with NVIDIA's Volta plans, as far as memory goes, they said this. I mean, this was like this was literally when, like before Fermi came out, they had a roadmap showing Volta would come out in the late 20s or late 2010s. So around this time, with Volta that would use stacked DRAM. They knew it was going to take this long for it to be
NVIDIA was really good about predicting it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 11 series having GDDR6 and then like 12 series
using
Volta.
HBM. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. And Mitch actually made a good point. He agreed with me. AMD definitely are they're trailblazers. It's amazing for the industry, but then they totally get screwed. Yeah, AMD tends to invest in things too early and hype them up a lot, and consumers expect them, and then it doesn't happen for 4 years, and they kind of lose their hype traction that they had. So yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. I like AMD in that sense. I feel like they're trying really hard to innovate and to invest in the right sorts of things. They're a little bit ahead of the curve sometimes. They see the future. The same thing happened with the heterogeneous system architecture, HSA, which was and is amazing when they were talking about a lot of the new APUs and how they were functioning. but it never gained traction. And maybe it will in the future, but for now, it was like, wow, this amazing thing that these few things that work with it show insane performance gains. And now nobody's talked about it for like 3 or 4 years. So,
well, I think that's a little bit of a separate issue. I think that's the issue of them not being able to make developers interested.
yeah,
and that's a
yeah.
big part of that, is that they just don't have the market share for it. If AMD, being as weird as AMD is, had Intel's market share, it would have gotten support.
You're right about that too. Yeah,
I'm a developer.
They're gaining market share now, which is good.
But like if I'm a developer and I only have so much time and I can't optimize for both equally, I'm going to optimize for Intel as the priority because that's what most devices have.
Well, not only that, but you're not going to want to spend your time optimizing for a brand new thing that you don't even know if it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
If you already know that there's not even a good market following, then you add that on top of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, just AMD doesn't have the Apple effect. Apple can get anyone to develop for anything.
Yeah,
AMD certainly can't.
Yeah, this is unfortunate. Well, the same thing happened with Mantle, which is now Vulkan, and luckily it's Vulkan. Now it's gaining traction because it's not owned by AMD technically. It's funny how that works. But yeah, the exact same thing happened with Mantle. Great idea, but they didn't have enough market share, so not enough developers really took the time to push for it. The ones that did see substantial performance improvement, although the testing also didn't show that. I'll briefly explain why that happened. So a lot of people were testing how Mantle affected CPU performance, because Mantle, which is now Vulkan, is a low-level API supposed to reduce CPU draw calls, so it should theoretically get you better performance, in particular on less powerful CPUs. Well, the problem is, first off, they test them on Intel chips. They were already way faster in IPC back before Ryzen. And so you wouldn't see, you'd see 5, maybe 10 FPS improvements switching to Mantle from DirectX 11, not a big deal. Then they test them with AMD chips, and you see a little bit more, but still not a big deal. The problem is when these companies do benchmarks, in particular for gaming and stuff, they go and reduce everything else as much as they can load-wise on the system. They have as few applications as they can. They usually have a fresh copy of Windows and, et cetera, to make it easier. The problem is that's the exact situation that Mantle wasn't trying to solve. Mantle was trying to solve the dude using his computer, doing a whole bunch of shit and playing games. I tested it myself. I unfortunately didn't make a video on it when this happened. I wasn't really doing much of YouTube at the time, but I tested it myself when I had an FX 8150, and I saw improvements of like 30, 40 FPS because of it, because everything else, I was running so many other things on my system, the CPU was being occupied by more stuff and actually working hard, and I was seeing massive performance gains of usually at least like 20, 25 FPS from switching to Mantle from DirectX 11. So anyway, point is, AMD tends to just, they have the right idea, but they either don't implement it right or they can't get the following.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that happens. But let's move on because we're down to under an hour now.
Yeah. So Tesla announced, well, they not announced, they showed off the final details really of their solar rooftop. This has been an interesting product for a long time. So what's happening? They'll start opening up orders soon. They'll ship later this year in the US and early next year everywhere else, or starting early next year everywhere else. As far as the models go, because they have essentially they're going to have different tiles for the rooftop for different styles. I think they're only going to have like 1 or 2 to start, and then they'll do a slow rollout.
Right.
But some other interesting details. So they, first off, this is really cool. It has an unlimited warranty. They said it's the lifetime of your house or infinity, whichever happens first.
Yeah, pretty great. I like the idea of that, which is actually proves that they've at least, or hopefully proves that they've solved the problem, because a lot of solar panels do have degradation problems.
So the solar panels themselves, and this is better than pretty much anything else in the industry, the solar themselves will last about 30 years, is what they're expecting.
Okay.
But the actual like roof tiles themselves, which your house wouldn't have complete coverage of solar panels, because that's not needed, and it would just increase the cost significantly. Most homes would only need like 35 to 40%. Some homes would need more, or you could have the option to have more. But
I have LAN parties, so I would need more.
Yeah, but that's not like that's not the big issue essentially. But yeah, I mean, they're confident in the tiles. And if you go onto tesla.com/solar roof and scroll down to where they talk about the warranty, they show just how strong their tiles are compared to anything else. They have a GIF playing on the site comparing their tile with 2 different traditional roof tiles. And they are shooting using essentially a hail gun. They're shooting a hailstone that's 2 inches big at 100 miles an hour. And they film it at 2,500 frames per second. The traditional roof tiles, shattered. The Tesla solar glass, pretty much fine.
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, traditional roofs are pretty shit. I know from experience.
Yeah.
And it looks like they might potentially be cheaper than a regular roof before the electricity savings.
I mean, it depends.
It was hinted at that.
So if you're getting, and again, these are very like high-end roof tiles, you can get shingles for like $1 a piece. You could do houses for roofing for really cheap. But if you're in a position where you're looking at, upgrading your roof and doing it as a significant investment where you were already considering high-end tiles, then this is where this becomes a cost competitor. And this is just for now. They could bring down the cost as time goes on. I mean, it's never going to be as cheap as just basic super cheapo tiles, but there is, a lot of potential for this to go down. And again, cost will vary based off of how much you actually need.
Well, I would assume it would probably, how much you need is also going to be based off of area. Keep that in mind, people.
It's going to be based off of area. It's going to be based off of everyone's individual use. There's a lot to it.
But if you have power packs on your wall, also that'll help a lot recover for the times you're using more electricity.
Yeah,
which is the idea. I totally get that. I'm just pointing that out to people. Is if you don't have enough solar panels to cover the power you need, your batteries are going to be able to handle that, assuming you're not doing it for too long of a period of time.
Yeah, and then another thing that's nice too is that with the cost of setting this up, so if you get a quote from them, that cost is covering every single step. It's just essentially you agree to pay them the money, and they take care of everything from taking off the roof to setting up, which is all expected. They'll handle the permits for you. They'll handle maintenance for the lifetime of the tiles. They will essentially be the only people you have to deal with for your roof is whatever contractors they go through.
Yeah, right. Indeed. And there is a report that Tesla solar roof could cost less than a regular roof even before the energy production.
Yeah.
The point they're getting at, though, that's not 100% coverage. It depends on how much you need. And
it will, if you had 100% coverage, it will not be cheaper.
Right, of course. And that's not expected at all. Yeah.
But again, most people only need 35 to 40%.
Yeah.
Especially since
we have a comment. Mitch was saying, Teslas are so badass. He wants one of their cars. It'd be nice to have them just do all the work for him. Yeah, I can agree with that, although part of me actually likes driving. I mean, I travel a lot,
That's why you just get any of their cars, because they support both.
Oh, I know. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, personally, most of the time, I prefer to actually drive myself. But either way, I mean, they're badass cars and more than just the autonomous driving way.
I hope that by the time, because it's not going to be readily available for quite a while, I hope that by the time they are readily available, I can get a Model 3.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That would, if I get a brand new car, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
We should probably jump to the next topic, though.
Okay.
So, AMD had a really, really, really bad rap.
Hey, at least it wasn't as bad as Snapchat.
Okay. But
Snapchat stock went down so much that I saw an article saying that they introduced a new feature, disappearing stock.
That's great. That's so great.
Yeah.
So AMD had a massive decrease in stock over a day. They lost 24.23%. That's how big the drop was in their stock prices. It's very close to the record of their worst drop of all time, and is the worst drop in the last 12 years, more than a decade. Went from $13.61 a share to $10.31 a share.
Damn.
That's not good. That's a big deal for AMD, and I feel really bad for them. And people were kind of wondering why this might happen, but Yeah, actually, Mitch just said time to buy. Yeah, right now would be a good time to buy AMD stock, actually, because things are going to get better for them. It's
assuming assuming Vega doesn't blow.
True, although Ryzen's already so good, that's enough to push them pretty good.
Yeah, but the stock drop happened after Ryzen.
Yeah, people aren't fully understanding why it happened. It's a little bit odd. I think maybe they're not seeing the market share grasp that they're wanting AMD to get, but they've already taken back 3% from Intel, which is huge considering how many CPUs are out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are predicting though that this will go
desktop CPU market share long term is insignificant.
No, they're not talking. They meant like mobile, desktop, and server included. I believe it was 3%.
There's no way they got 3% counting mobile.
Maybe it was. I don't know. I believe it was counting servers. But anyway, what they're saying is that probably the stock will go back up significantly when Naples comes out, assuming it's good, which assuming it's based on Ryzen and the rumors about it are true, and what AMD has confirmed about it actually are true, then Naples should really help this go up. So because that's going to be a grasp on the server market where they can go, hey, we can give you like 32 core chips for like a quarter the price of Intel's like 26 core chips. They perform almost the same and they use less power. And it's like, boom, all of a sudden you've got these massive, server farms and stuff that are going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and no, Naples has not launched yet, Mitch. No, not yet. When it does, I firmly believe things are going to be amazing. Yeah, if they take back enterprise market share, they'll start killing it. Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're going to, because Intel has been fucking over enterprise for a long time with Xeons and the prices. Here, let's add 2 cores. Here's another, $3,000 tacked onto it when it costs them like an extra, $200 per CPU to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Intel for you though. Yeah,
that makes me so mad. The latest, I think the top Xeon right now is like $17,000.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah, that's all. it's so stupid.
That's not a big deal. You can afford that, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I love it. It's like, well, every time we add a core, the price goes up. And it's like, that's not how it works. The price goes down when you add cores to a single CPU. I mean, to a point.
The price per core.
The price per core, exactly. But the price per core is going up with Intel every time they add cores. Or most every time. I guess I would say when the only time that's not true is from the quad to the 6 cores, the price per core goes down. Every other time, the price per core continues to go up, which doesn't make sense. And when you start getting really dense amounts of cores on a chip, it's understandable for the price per core to not go down as much, but it should still be decreasing or staying the same, or at the bare minimum, only going up a very small amount. Because, of course, you do have more thermal interface material, you have more heat to deal with, you probably have to use a better heat spreader, things like that, especially the better thermal interface material to get the heat off of the chips, and that's understandable. But also, Intel Xeon chips are clocked so low for the really high core count ones. Their regular ones they've been pretty progressively increasing the clock speeds, which is good. But the really high core count ones, the clock speeds are so low that the heat difference actually isn't much more over, like a 10 core or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so some Seagate news here. That's a big deal. So first off, Seagate shipped their 35th millionth shingled magnetic recording hard drive. That is their archive technology. What that is basically, so on hard drive platters, the way they read and write, for those of you who don't know, they actually essentially change the magnetic properties of a specific small area on the drive to represent either a 1 or a 0, and they can change it back to either one. So what happens is you have a write head that basically applies, I'm trying to think of how to put it in a layman's term, applies magnetism. Basically, it changes the magnetic properties of a very small area on the platter to represent either the 1 or 0 that needs to be represented. And then you have a read head that reads from that. The problem is when you get down to really, really small amounts, what ends up happening is it's really hard to actually get the magnetic change to stay, which is called the coercivity, I believe, of a like an element of its ability to hold magnetism, and they have to apply more power to it essentially, which they haven't been able to do. But you can read from basically infinitely small areas on a platter. So what Seagate has done to attempt to solve this is shingled magnetic recording, which has allowed them, basically they overlap the layers on the platter. You get the platter and the right in a circle. They overlap the little ones on top of each other like a shingled roof, because they can still read from them that way, and they can write more in the same area because they're overwriting half of the previous one each time, of the previous area. Now, the problem with that is every time if you need to change something, especially something that's in further on the platter, you've got to go rewrite that entire area all the way back to the outside of the platter, so it takes forever. Now, the reason, though, that SMR has been going up is you get really high capacity. Lots of servers actually don't need to have like really fast rewrites. They're mostly for long-term storage and stuff like that. But they've also been doing a lot of things to improve on how shingled magnetic recording works. Things like using SSD caching. So a certain size amount of NAND flash that caches. So it's like, okay, well, you need to rewrite this little area. So we need to rewrite, this entire 16 gig section, and all of a sudden it goes, all right, well, we'll load 16 gigs of data into like a 32 gig NAND cache, and then slowly let it do that while you're doing other things. So pretty cool. Also, Mitch says he's got to go. Great stream. He'll catch the rest later. Thank you. He just finished his 1080 Ti hybrid build an hour ago, and he wants to put it through its paces. You enjoy your 1080 Ti. That is awesome.
Jealous. Me over here with 970. I feel like a peasant.
Yeah, 970 is not bad. I had one for a while.
Yeah.
I liked it. I don't even know what I did with it. I sold it to somebody. Can't remember who. Now I have a 1070. And my brother has a 1070. We love them. It's a great, great, great card.
Yeah, well, I'll have an 1177.
That's my number. 77. Okay. You have a good night too, Mitch. See you later. See ya. So Seagate confirms HAMR drives. Now, this is a big deal because they have been talking about this for a very long time, but have never confirmed when it'll be ready, or even if it will work, even though they've proven that it'll work, but if it'll work on a mass scale. They've confirmed them by the end of 2018. Of course, that probably actually realistically means early 2019. We'll see. But for those of you who don't know, do you know what HAMR is, Daniel? Have I talked to you about this?
Nope.
Okay, so it's heat-assisted magnetic recording. Basically, what it does is they discovered that if you heat a material up, its magnetic I can't even remember the term for this one. It's another C term. But basically, the magnetic the ability to hold magnetism permanently until acted upon, becomes better. So you can actually, if you heat, they discovered on like a hard drive platter, if you really quickly heat a smaller area, you can then write to it, and it'll stay that 1 or that 0 representation. It'll keep its magnetic properties, versus if you didn't heat it, it wouldn't keep that. So basically, you're able to heat it up. It's able to increase density because you can write to a smaller area effectively. Well, this is a thing that's been working for a long time, but it looks like they're actually going to be releasing drives on it, and it's going to mean some really big innovation in hard drives. And this is exactly what hard drives need to keep them afloat right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, in the server side, yeah, but in consumer side, for me, I'd still buy an SSD over a 16 or 500,000 terabyte hard drive for the same.
Well, yeah, no, that's the idea though. But I mean, as data, needs increase, if SSDs don't increase at the same pace, even for consumers, then this will become a thing. I mean, potentially, yeah, but we do know NAND shortages happen and stuff like that. But the point here is super high capacity drives, which is not just great for enterprise though. I mean, there are consumers that would use those in their servers and their NASs and stuff like that. So I mean, it's just you wouldn't usually put one like in your computer, of course.
There's enthusiasts that would use it. The general consumer market would never touch this.
No, and that's fine. That's fine. I know Seagate isn't expecting that. Yeah, but what it does is, so basically they have a laser. So we have laser powered hard drives now.
I'm a laser.
It has a laser that shoots the area that needs to that superheats the area that needs to be written to, so that it can be written to, and then once it cools down, it still holds that property. It still holds that magnetic property. So we're looking at increased platter density, which means, especially paired with helium drives, which means we're going to have greatly increased capacity. Looks like the first ones are going to be 16 terabyte drives. Remember, these are 16 terabyte drives that are not shingled magnetic recording, meaning they should have very close to the equal performance to standard hard drives, actually more than equal, probably better performance when it comes to the reads, because you're reading from an even smaller area, so you can access more data with less movement of the actual read head. Writing, who knows, it might be a little bit slower. It depends on how quick that laser can actually heat areas. We'll have to see how that goes. But for now, I mean, you won't have to rewrite the whole platter or a whole section of the platter just to change something up higher on it. So that's the big deal there. You won't have the same problem that the archive SMR, single magnetic recording drives, have. So 16 terabytes at first, but I mean, it looks like we're going to be going up from there to, you know, freaking 20 and 40 and even like up to over 100 terabytes in a single drive, which is a really big deal for data centers. If you can get 100 terabytes in a single drive, and that drive only costs like, you know, double what like a 16 terabyte drive will cost, that's amazing. So it's a big deal. I'm really excited for this. I've been wanting to see this because, you know, I'm a freaking nerd for storage. And I would love to have access to something like this, because the whole idea of it is it doesn't increase price that much, because you're just adding a laser to already existing technology and then shrinking the write head down to be even smaller. Other than that, it's not really increasing. There's not a lot of change. So it would function just like a regular hard drive. So, I mean, we could have 16 terabyte hard drives that potentially, you know, only cost like, you know, $300 or $400.
Yeah.
And for me, like personally, that's what I would throw two 16 terabytes into my server here, have them mirrored, and that would be my storage for 4K footage. And I would start storing all my Cineform instead of deleting it. Boom. You know, so I mean, there is use cases for this majorly. We can move on though, but I just thought that was a really cool thing that's happening.
Yeah, let's talk about stupid Intel being stupid Intel.
Did you hear about this before this
Yes.
blurb? Okay. Okay, so Intel's being stupid to enthusiasts again, and it's the same issue that they've had for a while again. So for a very long time, there's been an argument between AMD and Intel people, and I want to brush on this first before we get to what actually happened. AMD solders their integrated heat spreader. That's that little metal thing that goes on top of your actual CPU. Not the heat sink, but the little metal one that's attached to the CPU. AMD solders theirs to the die, meaning there is essentially perfect heat transfer between the two as to whatever that material is capable of carrying heat-wise. Now, Intel instead uses TIM, thermal interface material, which basically they put a layer of adhesive thermal paste essentially between the die and the actual integrated heat spreader. That is maybe a cheaper way to do it. It's definitely a money-saving thing, I think, because then they don't have to worry about soldering things just right, which soldering's hard, but expensive. But also, they we'll just fill in this space and slap this thing on it, and it's good to go. The problem with this is this TIM can degrade over time. This thermal interface material isn't as good as direct connection, of course, or direct transfer. So what you end up in a situation is people having problems, and they had inconsistencies. This happened with the 4770K, where people were having really major overheating problems with their 4770Ks. And they would delid them, where they would actually pry off that integrated heat spreader, get rid of the thermal interface material, put on their own, and then put a heat sink right on top of it, or put the integrated heat spreader back on top. Just better thermal interface material. Which, of course, voids your warranties and crap like that. Well, they came out with the 4790K, which mostly, emphasize the mostly, solved the problem, where people weren't getting anywhere near as high of temps. Because what would happen is, basically, once you hit a certain point of, like, overclocking, or a certain amount of heat is being dissipated, that's the maximum that thermal interface material could happen. And it doesn't matter if you're using frickin' the best liquid cooling system on the planet. You run into the situation, if the heat can't get from the die to the integrated heat spreader, which is what is touched by all the cooling components of the computer, then you can't cool it any better. It doesn't matter how good your cooling is. And that's what was happening. And so they fixed that mostly, to the point where some people were still delidding their 4790Ks. It was still somewhat popular, but wasn't a huge thing like it was with the 4770K, because the TIM was so good, you could overclock them pretty high. So Intel's doing this again. The 7700K is hitting 90C on a lot of people under pretty moderate overclocks, pretty held back overclocks, and even some non-overclocked. Probably again because of bad thermal interface material. So maybe we'll see a 7790K.
Hey, at least it can overclock.
Shh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
More than like half a gigahertz.
Yes, but you also have to, the thing is, it's the K series, it's unlocked. It's supposed to be overclockable, and so when you're overclocking,
I was shitting on AMD, and there's
I know. when you're overclocking by just a little bit and you're hitting massive temperature increases, which again points to bad thermal interface material, especially when it's inconsistent, means that they're using either a different thermal interface material, they're not putting it in right, something's not going right, but it's probably TIM related. So now Intel's saying that they don't recommend overclocking. So let's go buy this.
I say they're stupid because of the whole issue of it hitting the same problem again.
No, yeah. But
let's be real. Just because they sell an overclock thing, I mean, they've never recommended overclocking.
No, you're totally right. I'm not arguing against that. Well, what's pissing off enthusiasts isn't that Intel's saying we don't recommend overclocking. It's the Intel solution to, well, here's a problem. Intel goes, well, don't overclock. And it's like, well, why do you make a K series then if you're just going to tell us don't overclock it because it's not worth it? That's the idea that's pissing off enthusiasts. Is it's not that Intel doesn't recommend it necessarily, but more so people that complained about this, Intel said, well, just don't overclock and you're fine. It's within specification. Yeah. And the problem is these enthusiasts are like, yes, it's within specification. We understand there's no legal problem here or anything like that. But Intel, you built this chip with the K defining that it's supposed to essentially be for enthusiasts, and then you're fucking them over. And that's what making them mad. Instead of saying, oh, well, we'll try and figure out what's going on and fix this for you guys, they instead are just like, Joel says, don't market overclocking if you're not going to properly support it. That's a good way to put it. They market it as the K series. Hey, you pay $20 for us to do literally nothing to the chip other than let you access the multiplier. And and sometimes even more than 20, it's like $30, $40 to literally just be able to access the multiplier. They don't actually have to spend a cent on it.
Yeah.
It's all,
but the other thing is, if they were to actually develop the hardware different, so let's say because it is cheaper or whatever, they decide to use the crappy stuff they're using now on the base chips, and on the K series they have better features. That's just going to drive up the price way more. There's no way they're going to spend that R&D money on 2 or 3, a few chips out of their lineup.
No, totally.
And it's not going to cost only $20 more.
Right. I guess what Joel's
saying, I agree with the idea that they should be doing this better. I'm just saying it's going to cost us more if they do it.
Yeah, well, what Intel needs to do, though, is they need to apologize for it and say, we'll try and figure out a solution or something, instead of just, well, don't overclock. Not our problem. Like, they're shrugging it off is what they're doing. That's what's making people mad. They're going, who cares? And it's like, well, we don't say you should overclock, so... But then they market it as an overclockable chip. They market it as an unlocked chip. They purposefully build them. Some of them overclock really well. And then they also have the performance tuning warranty, which is saying, here, you pay some extra money, then you can overclock and we'll support you. So it's kind of like, it's just a little iffy. But basically, it's just, instead of taking credit for the problem and saying, yeah, it's our fault.
Yeah.
Which even if it's simple, even if it was as simple as, well, yeah, it's our fault. We know why it might be happening, but we're not willing to invest the money to fix it right now. Then people will probably be like, well, fuck you, but okay. But no, it's the fact that they're just saying, well, don't overclock, duh. That's the way to fix it. It's like, no. You need to admit that you messed this up. It's your fault. It's Intel's fault, not the enthusiast.
I mean, I don't know if it's I'm sure they knew, but I feel like it's not the reason that they're doing it like this is that they don't see it as a mistake. They knew it wouldn't overclock as well. That just wasn't their priority.
Yeah. I get that.
And they should give a fuck, but they don't.
Here, Joel I like the way Joel put this, actually. By the way, thanks for joining us, Joel. I know that we changed the date, so thank you for joining us. But telling someone to not use the features that they're marketing is frustrating. Yeah, I can agree with that. They market it as
like when Apple said you shouldn't hold it in your left hand despite all of their advertising for their iPhone being in the left hand.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so it's that kind of thing we're saying, well, here's these chips and they overclock, and all the enthusiasts say they overclock really well, but then, well, you shouldn't overclock. It's like, well, are you kidding me? Yeah. I'm not sure. He says, I'm not sure why it's so hard for companies to be transparent with their business practices and processes. And I guess what he means is, they're not taking credit for what they're doing. And that's frustrating. I agree with that. So there was actually the news that was coming out was, so they fixed this with the 4790K. That was the thing too. They came out with the 4790K specifically to fix this problem, to please enthusiasts. And it worked. It made people happy. The enthusiasts started saying, well, we like Intel now. Look, they addressed this problem and they fixed it. And so buy a 4790K, it's $5 difference. But then they didn't. They just did the same thing again.
Yeah, I think what would be interesting to find out if we ever could, though, is if that realistically affected their financials positively or negatively. Because let's say they did that and sure, it made people happy, but they ultimately lost money on that decision. That could be why they don't seem to care this time, because they lost money on it before.
Yeah, maybe so. I just feel like...
And we've also seen, as time goes on, they care less and less and less about, especially about desktop CPUs.
Yeah, and I understand why they're doing that. I guess I feel like I said, enthusiasts have the loudest voices, and you need to do the little things to please the enthusiasts, even if it costs you a little money.
I'm playing devil's advocate here, only to a certain extent, because even if you had every single enthusiast love you, they already are dominant in the market share. It's not like they're going to grow so much back from that. Like, they're not pulling an AMD. They don't have to claw back. So because of that, financially, it may not make sense.
Yeah, and I guess I can understand that, but I guess the point is now enthusiasts are going to complain about it. And especially this happening at a time of Ryzen being around, though. Yeah. That's kind of hurtful. Joel said a few things, though. So companies worth so much should realize that people prioritize transparency and communication from companies that they invest their money in. You know that business is all about bottom line, but supporting the customers who have invested in you for years is something good companies do.
No one ever said Intel was a good company.
Right. That's a good point right there. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. You know, investing your money, whether you're buying their products, whether you're buying their stock, they need to be open and honest about things and take credit for mistakes that they make. And the companies that do that really impress people because they have integrity, and integrity says something about a company. Yeah, so if it's not an unreasonable cost, it's important to treat your customers and enthusiasts with respect when they invest in you. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. The other thing that happened too here with the 7700K is there were actually reports of some 7700Ks that were running hotter than 5 gigahertz overclocked FX chips, which partially that has to be said that the FX chips actually don't run as hot as Intel. They give off more heat. They don't run as hot temperature-wise. So I'm not sure if this was talking about actual heat dissipation or if it was talking about the actual temperature number. Because AMD chips have run cooler, but that's because they have a soldered integrated heat spreader, so they're more likely, or they dissipate that heat better. So a lot of AMD chips run at like 50, 60 Celsius or even less. Not so much Ryzen right away, but Ryzen's still better. Ryzen's still lower than Intel, but point is, super overclocked FX chip and 7700K is running hotter than that. Shouldn't be that case because those are old chips, and Intel was running cooler than them back when they first came out. So it's a little ridiculous. I think part of it too is some of these 7700Ks are having problems at stock clocks, and that's where it's a big deal. Where they're hitting 90C, they're not technically in the problem zone, but it's realistically stupid.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. More Intel news. Intel's chips being able to be hijacked is even worse than we thought. It's a 7-year-long issue that has allowed full remote admin access to computers over the internet. And it's a very stupid mistake. And this is another mistake. This one Intel has actually kind of owned up to and worked hard to release a patch to fix it, but they have to release BIOS patches through the BIOS company or the motherboard manufacturers, or chipset patches, sorry. So yeah, through the motherboard manufacturers, I believe. Yeah, so it's or at least the individual PC manufacturers. So it's going to take a couple of weeks before these patches start really rolling out. So it could be taken advantage of before that. In fact, it's been shown that it already has. It's called Active Management Technology, which allows remote admin access to systems so that admins can fix issues that require admin access remotely. So that's really helps tech, IT people. But what's happening here is, so originally the AMT system was designed with, password authentication. You're going to love this, Daniel. I don't know if you've heard much about this issue, have you?
A little bit.
Oh, you're going to love this. So apparently the reason that this is a problem is the password authentication can be bypassed by simply entering no text at all.
Oh my god.
You don't enter a password and it just works. Like, oh my god.
That's like how do you not test that?
How do you not, like, I wonder if it works without the password? Like, really? And I believe if you put in the wrong password, then it just kicks you off, right? But if you put in no password, it just works. Like, okay, whatever, Intel. So anyway, like, I don't understand how nobody found out about this for 7 years.
I know.
It's so dumb. Like, oh my gosh. And the packets for this remote access, the actual internet packets, data packets, bypass the operating system completely. So there's no trace. There's no way, like, you can't have like a virus program or some detector on your OS to tell you, oh, you're being remote accessed. It's completely, it's below the OS. So that's another problem. Custom-built PCs are generally safe because they don't have the active management technology turned on, because I believe it requires proper communication between the NIC in the motherboard and the actual CPU. So it's a business problem, which is good for us consumers, but really bad for businesses because they hold a lot of important data. So they're going to have to update it. It looks like they've already discovered 8,500 systems worldwide, 2,000 of which are in the U.S., where the AMT being able to access it basically was already exposed online. And they're probably going to count more than that. So it's already been exploited, and who knows how long it's been exploited for. So a little ridiculous there. And it's making it really hard because now all the IT guys or gals have to go around and patch. Fuck you. No, they have to go around and they have to patch all of these, which is a big deal. They have to go update all these PCs, and we know chipset updates usually aren't something you can very easily do. You can't really like just image that. It's not a hard drive thing, so you can't really update all your PCs at the same time with that very easily. So this is going to make it a pain in the butt for them because it's something you have to repeatedly do on lots of computers. Oh man, Intel has been getting a bad rap recently. I don't know why their stock hasn't gone to shit the way AMD's did when they did something great.
Because AMD is resting the survival of their company on PC hardware, whereas Intel has said that they don't give a fuck.
No, Intel is actually very good when it comes to being a business to invest in a sense. Being a business, they're very good. Being a chip manufacturer, they've kind of been pissing people off. And being innovative in the chip area in specific has kind of been pissing people off. Now, of course, they've been being innovative in, like, NAND flash with a 3D exploit and stuff like that. I also actually wanted to say something about the Volta GPUs that we were talking about earlier that I meant to put in the doc. Volta GPUs are running on 12 nanometers. So it looks like actually they've shrunk the die again, which is a huge deal. And according to what NVIDIA is saying, I'm assuming especially at this core count and these clock speeds, we're getting really close to what photolithography, which is how they actually basically how they turn the silicon platters into CPUs, is through photolithography. Current methods, we're getting really, really, really close to what that's capable of. We're at the limits of it, I believe, is actually what was said in the article. So that was interesting. Let's see. I thought I had an article up about it, but it doesn't look like it.
That's fine. We got a few other topics we need to get through.
Yeah. I was hoping that this was hoping I could find this because it was really interesting. Let me see if I can search it and find it.
The Google show.
Yeah, the V100 GPU. Let's see. The V100 GPU is, quote, at the limits of photolithography. We're told, end quote, we're told, packing the 21.1 billion transistor of silicon chip manufactured by TSMC using a 12 nanometer FinFET process. So that's pretty impressive. Although we know Samsung has pushed to 10 nanometers, so, but they're lower core count, lower clock speed, and they're not GPUs, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can continue though. So did you hear about this, Daniel? Ultrasonic tracking?
No.
So this is a big deal. So ultrasonic sounds are sounds that are way above what the human ear can hear. So there are sounds that you would have no idea are happening. Unlike really low frequencies where you can feel them, unless they're ridiculously low, you can feel them. these, you have no idea they're happening. There's no way to know that these super ultrasonic frequencies are happening. And what they've been able to do is that they can detect them from long ranges away, and they can have special microphone systems to be able to listen to these ultrasonic frequencies, and they can feed them out of everything else because nothing else is in that frequency range. What's happened here is we're basically seeing companies and stuff. I'm not exactly sure who. I don't have a lot of information on this other than what I've read and heard about it myself. I don't have an article in specific. But they can use like smartphones to emit these ultrasonic waves and then that way locate them.
So or in a Batman movie.
Yeah, or the reverse.
Literally in a Batman movie.
Yeah, or the reverse, billboards, street lights, things like that can emit these ultrasonic frequencies. Your phone's microphone picks them up, which leaving your phone's microphone on, as we all know, doesn't affect battery life more than by a couple %. So if it was on by default, nobody'd even know. And they can use this to figure out where you are, what you're doing. Billboards, for example, could figure out how many people actually are in this area for this billboard. The problem with this is they can use these frequencies to really invade your privacy because it is really accurate tracking and there's not really a way of stopping it. It's not like satellite tracking and stuff. It's you have no way of knowing it's happening.
I know what we're likely gonna see both apps that will tell you if there
was one and it disappeared.
Amounts.
Nobody knew what happened to it.
Yeah. And then we'll also likely see dedicated devices to deal with this.
Yeah, I'm sure we will, because this is a problem, is what it's going to be. It's a little, it's not fair.
Yeah, well, it's like we've seen. I mean, like most people don't use them, but there are like those glasses that you can get that have infrared LEDs around them in order to make it so that cameras can't properly scan your face.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different little things like that. We'll likely see stuff like this.
That emits random ultrasonic frequencies, so nobody knows what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I know there's going to be ways around it, but it's a little bit. It's like another tricky thing, probably mostly implemented by government to invade our privacy more, and of course, advertising companies and stuff want to do that.
Yeah.
Joel says, quote, "This is a big deal," end quote, for every topic. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we try and pick the topics that are big deals. So, I mean, they're all big deals.
The next one's not.
This is true. The next one's not at all.
The next one's not even new news.
I know.
Then why'd you put it in there?
Huh?
Why'd you put it in there?
Because some people, we haven't talked about it on the show before.
So we can find topics from the last 20 years.
This was fairly recent in their thing. It's still for sure going to happen. We'll get to that in a sec.
I knew it was going to happen a couple months ago.
I know. We all knew it was going to happen, but it's more so confirmed now. So Overwatch, I guess I'll just jump straight to that ultrasonic tracking now that we segued to that. Overwatch has officially, even though they already had kind of officially said.
Not kind of, they did confirm before that it was going to happen.
Exporting and saving of, I put that in there, heights lights, but highlights will be a thing. So finally, hopefully within the next few months is what they're saying now. That's the nice thing, is we have a time frame now. We didn't.
Yeah, that is new.
Yeah, that is the new part.
So the new time frame, they're saying expect details early this summer. And then also the other actual new news is that they actually have a small team specifically focusing on the new system.
Yeah, right. So it's a pretty cool idea. I would love to be able to save some of my highlights. So and just download them, throw them on a server, just keep them, look at them one day. Oh yeah. Oh hey, the other Joel is here now. Hey Joel, how's it going? Or Joe, not Joel. Sorry, I said the name wrong.
Good job.
Joe. I know. I was reading both at the same time. Hi Joe, how's it going? Good to see you here. We're on our way to 1984.
We are already there.
No. We're like just before it.
So we're in 1983 December. It's Christmas.
It's like December 31st at like 11:50 p.m.
Yeah.
I butchered. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Joel. I butchered that. I apologize to both of you.
Wait, is it Joel or Joe?
It's Joel. I apologize to both of you for calling Joel and saying the other Joel's here, because there isn't another Joel. It's Joe, but I read it wrong, even though I knew it was you, and so I'm sorry. I apologize for that. And now Felipe here is being a dick. Of course he is. Yeah, you're just gonna join. Just I'm gonna make fun of you. Yeah, thanks, Felipe. I appreciate it. Oh man, we have 4 people watching. This is what happens with every show. I'm telling you, man. We start with 1 or 2. We end up with like 8 people watching at the end. Every time it's like, well, now I'm glad everybody joined because now we're at the crappy news. Joel's like, I am the only Joel in this chat. I know you are. I am sorry. I am sorry. Classic Felipe. God damn it. Oh, this is great. I love this. I love this. Oh, man. But yes, I am sorry for mixing your names up, guys. That was my bad. But I appreciate both of you watching. And I appreciate you watching too. Shut up. Well, I just do this show hoping nobody will watch it.
You appreciate them so well you don't even know the names, and their names are in front of you.
I hate you so much. Oh man. Oh, Joel's Groot. All right, I'll call you Groot from now on because that way I won't get it mixed up.
Hi, Groot.
Hi, Groot. No.
It's Groot and Joel.
I hate you so much right now. Oh man. Okay, all right. Let's move on to something before we all die. He's now going to Joe's going to legally change his name to Joel. Okay. Are you doing that just to like fix what I said so what I said ends up being true? I appreciate that. No,
just because then you'll call him Joe.
Oh, that's great. That's so good. That's so good. Okay, this blew up, I guess. Oh man, I made a mistake alive. Why did I make a mistake alive? You're not supposed to make mistakes when you're live. This is why we have editing. What am I doing now? Now I'm making mistakes and I can't go back and fix them.
Next topic.
Next topic. X299, potentially on June 12th. Not much more news than that other than some motherboards kind of were teased, I believe by MSI. And so, yeah, hopefully June 12th we'll know more about X299. There's supposed to be motherboards shown off. We don't know if we'll know anything about the chips that are going to be on X299. But we should hopefully have information on the motherboards, which gives us a pretty good indication because the chips are going to be pretty simple. It's how many cores and what price. But motherboards, seeing motherboard features, which is one thing I've actually seen Intel been innovating, even in an enthusiast area, they've been innovating really well on motherboards and chipsets. They've been doing a really good job with better USB 3.1 support, PCI lanes built into the chipsets so that you can get, better M.2 NVMe support, things like that. So I've been impressed with them, and I'm excited to see what X299 does because, frankly, X99 hasn't had any major upgrades, and there's, that's what happens is there's a lot that changes, and usually what it is the Extreme platform basically leaps over the regular mainstream and mobile and enthusiast-ish platforms, and then everything else catches up, then surpasses it a little, then it leaps over it again. So I like the way they do that.
Okay, so one thing I want to add about the Tesla V100, the first availability of it won't be on its own. It will be in one of NVIDIA's own supercomputers, of which the price is $149,000 for the supercomputer.
Okay. I heard you, but we have a few comments, and I want to address them before the chat blows up anymore. Joel says, "How's Brazil?" And Joe says, "That's my actual last name." Joel says that sounds like fake news. I like that. And then Joel's like, not like anyone cares about getting names correct here. So how am I supposed to know if that's your real last name? That's a good point. I mean, apparently I broke our live stream.
Ethan number.
Right. I broke our live stream. Great. But Felipe says, anything new for ITX boards? Are you talking about X299 in specific? If so, we haven't seen anything about ITX boards yet, as far as I know.
No companies care about ITX.
ITX is amazing. It's just that, I guess the problem is, a lot of people are going with micro ATX instead because they can get almost as small builds and they have the ability for another GPU. But I really like the idea of ITX. I've always wanted to do an insane ITX build at some point, although then I bought a wall mountable case that comes in either ITX, MATX, or ATX, and I bought the MATX version. So
Yep.
I did exactly what I wasn't supposed to do.
Okay, yeah. So that supercomputer though,
Yes, continue.
it's $149,000. It has 8 Tesla V100s in it.
That's nice. That's very nice.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they are claiming that it is equivalent to about 400 servers in a box.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And this is very much an AI focused box. But they're saying it can do what the Titan X takes 8 days to do in 8 hours.
Okay, I see.
Yeah,
I
that's
see.
a huge increase.
Yeah, that is a big deal. That is a very big deal. I wanted to touch on the ITX stuff a little bit more for Felipe. So it looks like X299, we might see an ITX specific version of the chipset. These are kind of just rumors that have been around in comment sections of different websites, so nothing really confirmed or anything by that yet. But it looks like, I mean, we've got, yeah, it's just mostly comments sections. But people are thinking that we're going to see kind of like what ASRock did, where with X299, it's going to be kind of a special thing, unless Intel makes a specific X299 ITX version of the chipset, like AMD is doing with what is it? The X3 something else. I can't even remember the name of the chipset. The one that's specific for ITX, making ITX specific chipsets, which I think makes sense. So that's for X299, but AM4, it looks like mini ITX is going to be a pretty good thing for AM4. So you know that there are going to be there is actually an AM4 ITX board already, but it's running X370, which is kind of a waste. I think it was ASRock that was actually the first to it. Again, ASRock's really good when it comes to that. Or no, it was BioStar this time. I'm sorry, it was BioStar this time.
I think most companies are just waiting. I think ITX is going to sell better with APUs than it would with the high ends, and that's why we're not seeing any like B150 or whatever, B whatever.
Yeah. And so what happened is with the BioStar, the complaint people are having a little bit, it's a great motherboard actually, especially for the price, but the X370 chipset that's on it is not a mobile chipset, meaning some of the features of it, such as SLI support and like better more PCI Express lanes and stuff like that, you're literally not able to take advantage of because the board physically doesn't have those connectors on it for anything like that. And so people are complaining about that, but it's only going to save you like maybe $20 on an already pretty cheap board to go with the mobile specific chipset that may or may not be ready yet. So it's a little bit like you're literally spending money for something you actually can't use. You're throwing money away, but it's not a lot of money. So if you're trying to be an early adopter to ITX for AM4, makes sense. Let's see. Joel said something funny here. WordTech. We're bad at words in between talking about tech.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about right. Yes. Does the supercomputer run Minecraft though at 30 FPS max? Yeah, probably something like that. ITX for a Hackintosh. That'd be interesting. Yeah, I like ITX. I hope they continue to invest in it too. And I feel like Asus did a really good job, especially on like Z97 investing in ITX. They just haven't recently, and I wonder if their sales just haven't been very good because they were really good about getting like the mega premium features that they only really have room for on full ATX, figuring out ways to maneuver things to fit them on an ITX board. Mm-hmm. And then ASRock was able to fit a socket that nobody thought you'd be able to fit on an ITX board. But of course, they moved the RAM around, and they had to use narrow ILM coolers and stuff like that, so you couldn't mount a regular liquid cooler to it or anything like that. So, but yeah, ITX is awesome for LAN parties. I agree with that, Joe. In fact, I've considered building a LAN system, except that I have my laptop now, so I don't need to. But yeah, no, I think ITX is awesome for LAN builds. I do love working with ITX boards too. They're so adorable. If you've never seen one in person, you need to see an ITX board in person. They're so fun to pick up. It's like this little thing, and now I'm gonna go overclock it. But yeah, speaking of LAN parties, I might try and get some footage of my LAN party at the end of this month for the maybe a time lapse. I should do a time lapse of our LAN party. That's what I should do.
Yeah.
Maybe I will, because I'm throwing a pretty big LAN party at the end of the month, and so I might do that. Also, some news for you guys is we'll try and get some footage when we're there, but Daniel and I should be going to the November PDX LAN.
Yeah.
Woot! So that'd be really, really cool. especially because there's not usually too much coverage of the November one because it's the smallest one out of the 4 they do. So a lot of the big YouTubers don't go, which sucks because we won't get to meet them, but is good because we'll be able to provide content that nobody else is providing. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. That'd be really cool. Maybe do some live streaming from there for half an hour or something. Talk about what it's like there. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'd love to do that though. So definitely we'll have to buy tickets when that's ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that we need to talk about? Because we're definitely getting
not
Galaxy
really. S8, nobody cares. In fact, I will mention this because actually this the news came out about this, or at least I saw it during the show. Netflix on Android has HDR support only on the LG G6.
Really?
Because Samsung opted to use a different standard that most places aren't using. So
is the G6 HDR screen? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay,
yeah.
I thought so.
HDR 10 standard, whereas Samsung is using the mobile premium blah 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 that no company. It's a great standard, but no company is using it for content.
Samsung's shooting themselves in the foot sometimes with these kind of things. They do that sometimes. Samsung's so weird. Here, we're the best silicon manufacturer on the planet, but we can't standardize our HDR. It's just little things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of lame actually. HDR is the next thing too. That's why I'm up when I get a new TV, because I have a 4K TV right now. This 4K 40-inch is going in my bedroom, but I'm waiting for, at the bare minimum, a HDR decent priced 4K TV. But I'd also like to see OLED and potentially an ultra wide. Although it just depends on how much money I'm willing to spend $2,000 to $3,000 on a TV, no more than that, and that'll be a one-time, that'll be something I keep for a very long time. But I'm waiting for the technology to develop a little more, like the one MKBHD did, the really super thin TV that was on the wall. It was powered by
LG fucking OLED W
wallpaper. Yeah,
beautiful TV,
amazing TV. It's only $8,000 actually, which sounds really expensive, but when you consider that OLED, just like a year and a half or 2 years ago, it was like $20,000 to get one.
And more. On top of that, this
HDR and thin.
Yeah, and it comes with a sound bar that is good quality.
Not to mention, it looks super dope.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at this looks like the type of thing that they would show off at an event, and you'd never see it again.
Yeah, but then it's purchasable. Yeah. For real,
like how Samsung, and I wish Samsung would have released it. Samsung showed off that crazy TV that would split into 2 and change shape. It had no bezels in certain parts of it, so it could change shapes in order to go from standard to ultra wide.
So cool. Yeah, so I don't know. But eventually I am gonna get a better TV. Although I gotta do my home audio stuff first. I'm setting up. I'm gonna try and set up Dolby Atmos over here later this year. I'll have to do a video on that for everybody. You know what Atmos is? Yeah, more than just regular surround sound. I'm going to go ahead and just brush over what the S8 issues were, though, in case anybody that's watching was wondering why we said nobody cares. Well, first off, you guys have probably heard about the Galaxy S8 having the red screen issue, where some of the screens were just really particularly red. Some were really bad, but most were just moderate to not even really noticeable. Of course, though, this is being fixed with the software update that will allow you to manually tune the reds on a display, because you can tune the RGB of the display on the S8, which a lot of phones you can't, so it's kind of cool that you can on it. But even on some of the pretty bad red ones, like moderately bad to severely bad, even if you turn the reds all the way down, it still looks fairly red. This isn't exactly a display problem. It's probably a display inconsistency problem, but it can be fixed just by toning the reds down. It's not like the display's not working at all. So yeah, Joel, if it doesn't explode, it's not that bad. Yeah, I can agree.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's just a red screen, and they're releasing a software update to essentially allow you to turn the reds down even further than everything else to fix it. So that's not a huge deal. Then they started having wireless charging issues. Not a huge deal again, but people were using them on like the S7 wireless charging pads and stuff, and it would say that it was having like problems charging. There was actually, let me see what the specific thing it said was. They were already having a few problems with wireless charging. Man, websites crashing Chrome. This is freaking wonderful. Come on.
Well, hey, if you get Windows 10s, you can use Edge exclusively along with Bing. TM.
Yes, Bing is amazing. I am so... I can't even talk about it. I don't know. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what was happening with it is, according to some reports, some of the Galaxy S8s were being unable to charge on the Galaxy S7 wireless charging pads. When they placed the S8 on it for Galaxy S7, they would get a message saying wireless charging paused, and it would alert the user that irregular charge has been detected.
Which doesn't even make sense because it's just standard Qi charging on both devices.
It's the same thing. So that's exactly what it is. It's
how do you fuck up a standard you didn't even design? You're just doing it to spec.
That's the thing. So it's an actual hardware-based issue with the phone. I don't think it's really like an issue of it's not in spec. I think it's something with the phone is actually causing a problem. But again, as long as it's not exploding, it's okay.
Yeah. That or there's something wonky with Samsung's quick charging wireless tech.
Which there has been proof of that.
That's not part of Samsung has a tendency to utilize things that are very close to, but technically out of spec. Like if you look at their or any quick charging that's not the official USB-C standard is out of spec.
Right, Qualcomm's and all. Yeah, and so, well, I had the same issue as I bought a wireless charger, the Samsung one that I thought was really cool for my, I think this was for my Note. Did the Note 5 have it? Yeah, I believe it was for my, it was for my Note 5.
Everything with the glass back has had it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so I had it for my Note 5, and it would charge for like 10 minutes, and then it would stop charging. And I never got it to work again. It was only the quick charger that would do it. And it was, the funny part is I actually read reports about this happening on the reviews of it, as well as doing some research. And it was the Samsung one in specific. There were other quick charge wireless Qi chargers that would work just fine and solve the problem. I didn't test that myself, but lots of other people did. I was just like, whatever, I'll just plug it in. It's an extra second before I go to bed. But a lot of people actually, bought other things and tested it and said that fixed it. So it was like the Samsung one was having problems in specific. So,
yep. That's Samsung.
Yeah, exactly. But now the worst issue with the S8 that we're having, those two issues were like the wireless charging was kind of intermittent. I don't believe it was a consistent thing. And the red screen was definitely not a consistent thing. And when it happened, for most of them, it was fixable. And the ones that it wasn't is going to be fixed. Now, though, they're experiencing random reboots.
So they're pulling an LG.
Yes, they're pulling an LG, but worse. It's not just boot looping. What it is unlike
random reboots are worse than boot looping.
Well, no, unlike boot loops, which which are bad. What'll happen with the S8 is while you're using an app, it'll reboot, but it won't fully restart. And other people are experiencing infinite looping and stuff like that. Okay. I believe the ones that won't fully restart, I think some of them you've probably been able to force kill and then restart again. But some of them are getting infinite looping, and some of them are getting where it'll reboot like 3 times in a row, and then it'll work fine for a while.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird. Yeah. So one guy said it restarted 7 times in 1 hour or 10 hours while using it. It was using a specific app. He didn't say which one, it doesn't look like. But at first the app would freeze, then the screen turns off and it restarts.
Huh.
Yeah, and others have said that it's been rebooting even on standby. So it's
Pixel or bust.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm happy with my V20, bro. So that's why I didn't go to the S8.
When T-Mobile gets the BlackBerry Key 1, I'll get that.
There we go. My buddy's going to be getting the Key 1. Maybe I'll review it.
Calvin might be getting it because it's on Sprint.
Oh, okay. Oh, fuck Sprint. Joel says, everyone shits on Apple, but I've never had these types of quality control issues with his iPhone.
Remind me again about how you have to hold it with a specific hand with the iPhone 4S.
Yeah, that happened once, but they have been better about it, I'll be honest.
Yeah, but when they have a product that's, the response is, hold it with your other hand. That's worse than the overclocking situation.
Yeah, putting a bumper on it did fix it. But yeah. So no, I agree. But generally, though, I think I would agree with Joel. Apple does have pretty great quality control. That's what Apple's
known for, is their stability.
Yeah, that's what it is. You go buy an iPhone, it's just as good as everybody else's iPhone.
Yeah.
So I get you on that, and I can agree. I shit on Apple because I personally don't like using their products. I don't like some of the limits they have. And I like their industrial design kind of off and on. It depends on the product in specific. But I will not argue for a second that they have bad quality control. They have great quality control.
Yeah.
So and that's important to consumers, especially in the phone market.
Mm-hmm. So I just hate their OS.
I hate their OS too. Oh man.
iOS is inefficient to use.
It is, yeah. And I agree with that. But again, a lot of consumers, it's important to have good quality control, especially for people that aren't techie, that don't understand why tech has problems.
Pixel.
And so, yeah. But, you know, so yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, and the quality control seems to be getting worse with Samsung. Maybe because they're growing too rapidly. I don't know. Because I mean, the V20 had pretty great quality control. There was very few phones of the V20 that had any issues at all. So they did a good job there. Although that phone's built to be industrial, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
He said, you built a Hackintosh, so let's agree to disagree on that. Are you talking about the OS? Well, I think Daniel was talking about iOS and
Yeah, I was talking about iOS.
Yeah, Mac OS, I personally wouldn't use it because I still feel like that's a little bit limited and stuff, but I do actually like Mac OS. I do enjoy using Mac OS for the most part. It's iOS that bothers me, so the most. But personally, I just don't own any Apple products, but that's just my preference. There are lots of people that I have recommended them to. My grandma, actually, for example, she is actually very techie for her grandma, extremely. But I recommend Apple products to her because they make more sense. They work seamlessly together. They don't have problems. So, and she's been happy. So, yeah. I think we need to end the show there, though, because I've got to get up early for work, as usual. But thank you, everybody, for watching. And definitely, join us next week. Again, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Pacific time is our new time. I'll try and make a short video to remind people about that. There's going to be a video on my channel coming up from Mirko on Friday. You should be seeing a pretty great one from me on Monday. Hence the reason my entire room is messy here. As you see cables hanging up there, I have been redoing my entire room's networking, and so my room is a super mess, but I've got a time lapse of it, and I'll explain what I did.
Excuses.
Yes, right. Excuses that one of my switches is broken and I have to wait for a new one to come in.
Well, maybe you should have fixed it yourself.
Right. I'll just take apart the switch and replace like the PoE circuitry.
Yeah, why not?
Joel says he's been jailbreaking his iPhone for years, so he agrees with you about iOS. Yeah. iOS, yeah, it frustrates me. But anyway, we do have to end the show there, unfortunately. This was really fun. But yeah, 9 p.m. Pacific time, Wednesdays. Don't forget to check out the Minecraft and Teamspeak server. They're in the description if you'd like. And don't forget to go to Daniel's channel, again in the description, and go subscribe to him. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I guess we'll see you next week. I'm going to click stop now.